Skipped the lunch, cancelled the signing ceremony, moved the news conference up. It seems US President Donald Trump was more than eager to leave Hanoi and a failed summit behind. Joining now from Los Angeles, Peter Mathews, Professor of Political Science at Cypress College. So, Peter, let's talk about the collapse of this summit. The president, it all went bad for him, but then he sat down for a grueling hold no bars, take no prisoners interview. Actually, no, it was a softball palooza by Sean Hannity on Fox News. Here's an example.
The art of the deal. One of the key components in the book is you say you always got to be able to walk up to the last second.
Yeah. You always
Reagan, Reykjavik.
Well, whether it's Reagan, whether it's anybody, I mean, you have to be prepared to walk, and this just wouldn't have been good for our country. And frankly, he can look at it the same way. Maybe he can look at it the same way. But we get along really well.
Just like Reagan. But given the lack of preparation in the lead up to the meeting, there was no groundwork. It seems that there really was two options for how this summit was going to end. One party would either walk away or Trump was going to agree to a bad deal. Is that now finally the lesson learned here? Especially if there is a third summit? It's the groundwork, dude. You've got to get the groundwork in.
The groundwork is so important, John. All the diplomats who know the history of the situation, meeting with each other and negotiating it, all the details of the event, of the actual deal, before the president walks in and signs it or inks it or makes statements. He's got to have that expert background of all the experts in the State Department, diplomatic corps. Yet President Trump doesn't seem to want to do that. He wants to be able to wing it himself on these decisions and these particularly negotiated, very important summits. And you really wonder where that's going to lead him. We've already seen where it's led him so far. It's pretty much of a dead end with North Korea at this point. Yeah,
it does seem to be going nowhere, and there are questions about whether the North Koreans will return for a third summit, if it is to happen at all. But the best possible spin, though, that we're hearing from the administration after the collapse of the summit is that the process has not failed. Both sides walked away, but no one burned any bridges. But here's a part of an op-ed written by Victor Cha, who was almost chosen to be the US ambassador in Seoul. He was an advisor during the W. Bush administration. Having participated in nuclear negotiations with North Korea, I know what failure smells like. The truncated Hanoi summit, which concluded abruptly without an agreement between President Trump and Kim Jong-un, carried an awful stench. Okay, so again, was the failure here essentially because of the top-down process, not just the lack of groundwork, but you had Donald Trump out there making it all about himself. In many ways, he undercut his own diplomats. He pushed for it to happen as soon as possible. He wanted this circuit breaker, if you like, for this never-ending bad headlines, which keep appearing back home in Washington and the United States.
It seems like an ego trip, basically, and it shouldn't be that way. This should be a team effort. The groundwork has to be there. And he also, when he's on the stage, he's got to make sure that people know he's working together for this with his own experts, with his own people, that he's already prepared. Instead, he kind of wings it as you go along. And like the stench that Mr. Cha talked about, I can almost smell it across the TV screen here because, walking away that abruptly doesn't say it's a very successful or friendly way to part. So I don't think that the actions didn't seem to reflect the words.
Yeah, at one point, Pompeo and all the rest were talking about, there'd be no let-up in sanctions until complete denuclearization. And then Trump said he's in no rush. And that seemed to be music to the North Koreans. It's exactly what they wanted to hear. They wanted to drag out this process, which seemed to undercut all the groundwork that had been done beforehand, before the summit.
It's a real shame because this is a serious issue, John. You know what happened about a year and a half ago where both sides were just screaming at each other and threatening to use missiles or nuclear weapons if need be, and Rocket Man, all that stuff. That was a horrible situation for both sides and for the world. And we could easily end up back there again, and we may not be lucky this time because sometimes wars begin through miscalculation. Yeah. As Barbara Tuchman pointed out about World War I, that could happen again in this case, unless we get this together.
It's always the unknowns, the miscalculations, which leads to the escalation of a crisis. But
yes,
what we have here, the headlines after Michael Cohen's testimony before Congress were among the biggest and the baddest so far of this presidency. Trump's former lawyer and fixer he unloaded on his old boss. Legally and most damning of all, it seemed the reimbursement checks for $35,000, one signed by the president, submitted as evidence to support Cohen's claim Trump was aware of hush money, which was being paid to two women alleging affairs. The payments were a violation of campaign finance laws. Here's the response from the president.
But I can tell you personally, he said to me at least a dozen times that he made the decision on the payments and he didn't tell you.
Yeah.
Told me personally.
No, he did, and he made the decision. And remember this, he's an attorney. Whatever decision he makes, you're supposed to rely on an attorney to make a decision.
I guess what I meant to say was here is Sean Hannity responding for the president as to what happened, because they shared the same lawyer in Michael Cohen. You know, it raises a lot of questions about, you know, what Hannity is actually doing interviewing the president on television in the first place. But when you listen to the explanation, you know, by coming from Donald Trump, that I just left it all up to my lawyer, does that actually ring true?
Absolutely not. It doesn't make any sense at all. This kind of a decision is such an important one for the president and for his campaign. He wouldn't let his lawyer just do it on his own. And most people tend to believe what Cohen had to say, that this was approved by the president. He actually directed him to do this. And the check that was written to reimburse him was in the president's signature. And the second check, those checks were in his son's signature and his CFO, the chief financial officer of his company. That's pretty damning evidence right there. There was involvement of the president.
To say nothing of the recording of them all talking about it.
Audio recordings.
Yeah.
Yes, audio recordings as well. How can he deny that? It's amazing, John.
There was an ample amount of evidence for all of this, yet, you know, Donald Trump seems to, I guess, live in a world where none of that is remembered. Cohen also made some devastating allegations about the president and his character, and Trump was asked specifically about that. This is one of the few questions about Cohen that he received whilst he was in Hanoi. Here it is.
He called you a liar, a con man, a racist. What's your response to Michael Cohen?
Well, it's incorrect, and he lied a lot.
It's a pretty subdued answer, but you know, the bottom line here is all the bad stuff Cohen said and the stuff that may have some very serious consequences, they're all lies. But when Cohen said that he did not have any direct evidence of collusion between the Trump campaign and Russia, well, the president says, then he's telling the truth.
Yeah, he wanted to have it both ways, didn't he?
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. Cohen pointed out that this negotiation is going on with the Trump Tower between Trump himself, his campaign, and but Trump himself, his business interests, and Russia. That was going on for 6 months, but the president said it was over in January. And then Cohen said, no, it was over in June, and that was proven to be the case. So there's some example right there of a collusion or conspiracy to make money with Russia and to cover it up. This is big stuff. Don't forget, I think Ocasio-Cortez had the best interrogation when she said, let's get the tax return. Let's get some documentation here to show that the president inflated and deflated his properties at will just to avoid taxes and also have insurance settlements. That's pretty damning evidence, right? She had a great question there, and that's going to end up in more investigations with evidence.
And the interesting thing, it seems it's a strategy by Cohen to, you know, to admit to certain things and not admit to certain things that may have been beneficial to the president, may not have been. Essentially, just to tell the truth, sort of puts the president in a bind because not all of it's lies and not all of it can be, you know, is true. I mean, depending, you can't pick and choose. I guess that's the problem for Donald Trump. Peter, thank you.
Exactly. Thank you so much, John.
Okay.
Let's keep going.
It's Friday. Thank you.
Finally. Okay.